So hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast as we look ahead to the pivotal of the flat season, the Epsom Derby. And of course, we're joined on the podcast again by Mr. Mike Vince from SAS. Good evening, Mike.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's fit, well and happy.
And Mr. Ronan Groome, who has a very slick-looking haircut, and I can't wait to get to the barbers. I'm booked in for 3 o'clock before the Derby, Ronan Groome. It's the only appointment I could have got.
You're getting a Derby haircut, are you?
Get a Derby haircut. Mike Vince, of course, you caught up with Ed Walker and with English King, of course, favourite for the Epsom Derby.
When did you realise that English King might, at that stage, be a major player in the Derby? Was it that race in Newcastle? I mean, you had Varian, Gosden and Appleby second, third and fourth back at the back end of last year. Was that the day you suddenly realised what you'd got?
Yeah, then we realised we had a very nice horse. But Lingfield, we realised we had a real live Derby horse candidate. I'm at home. He was always just a nice, good-looking, athletic horse who did everything asked of him very nicely. Like I've said a lot, he's not flashy at home. Very good-looking, but not a flashy workhorse. And with Bjorn's a great guy to train for because everything is about the Derby. He's either trying to produce fillies to produce him a Derby winner, or he's trying to race colts to win the Derby. It's a very simple remit, really. So when you are sent a colt by Bjorn Nielsen, you kind of work backwards from the Derby. And it hasn't worked out too many times for me. But this time so far it has. And, so he's quite easy to train for like that. And after Newcastle, we thought, it's a case of keeping the bubble intact, really. And we tick that box at Newcastle and go on to the next step and then won the Derby trial as we did. And really, I mean, like the rest of the world, I think he was, I think you could probably back him at about 100 to 1. I think my assistant got a few quid on it, on Betfair going into Lingfield. And he was whatever price he was afterwards. So I think really all of us didn't see him quite as good a candidate as he is until Lingfield.
Was it also a case that Lingfield, of course, last year, the Derby trial winner at Lingfield went on to win at Epsom, and therefore you must see that as a positive as well?
Yeah. I mean, I worked for Luca Kamani for 4 years before I started training, and both his Derby winners prepped around Lingfield. Bjorn and I kind of, ever since the programme was announced, that was just the race we really wanted to go for. The ground was a bit of a concern. I went down and walked it the day before, deemed it as safe enough for a well-balanced athletic, not big heavy horse, and decided to take our chance. So it's, in terms of his preparation, it's been really straightforward. We identified that race from quite a long way out as that's the trial we want to go and try and win to book our spot. We booked our spot, and then it's he's the only horse in the yard I haven't had to do any race planning for.
And finally, obviously, no crowd, no parade. We've seen horses in the past lose it. Basically, their Derby is run by the time they get to the start. It must be easier thinking that shouldn't be an issue.
I actually think it's quite sad because I think, very sad, obviously, for the whole thing. But the Derby is meant to be the ultimate test. That is, it's meant to be the hardest race in the world to win, and that mental test beforehand is a big thing. And obviously, it's going to be easier for us, but it's going to be easier for all the other runners as well. Come the day.
Mike, brilliant to catch up with Ed Walker. And do you think he seems confident ahead of English King this weekend?
I think he's very upbeat about him. That interview, of course, was recorded before a little matter of stall 1 came out of the hat. And that is not good news, in my view. I know people will say you can win from it. Oath won there in 1999. That's all you need to know, 20 years ago. And I think that is a negative. That reduces the Tories' options. Yeah, it's not great with Mogul being drawn into the draw. It's going to make things very interesting. But I'm afraid I regard that as a negative. But he is a proven stayer. He'll get the trip. And one of the most exclusive clubs at Epsom is the I Failed to Get the Trip Club. And it wouldn't be at all surprised if there aren't a few enrolment forms handed out on Saturday.
Ronan, It's been well documented, and I want to ask you just about obviously Frankie replaces Tom Marquand. First of all, don't tell me now about you're one of these modern day snowflakes campaigning for justice for Tom.
Absolutely not. No, I mean, I think in the case of English King, you need as much experience as you get because no disrespect to the trainer, but he's a rookie. He's a rookie Derby trainer. This is going to be his first runner, and 90% of people, I would say, would have done the same thing. And I just don't get this big whole thing, the big foray that was made after they decided to book the Tory. It's not like Marquand has this huge relationship with the horse. He's won a Group 1 on them, or he's ridden them, loads of times. He's only ran 3 times, English King, and 90% of people would want the Tory on their first ever Derby runner. Obviously, Tory has the relationship with the owner as well through Stradivarius. It just makes a lot of sense. And now that he's installed one, as Mike says, he's going to need all of the Tories managed to win from there. As people might remember, that was Saxon Warriors' draw, I'm pretty sure, a couple of years ago, and it was viewed as a big negative then. And in a race that looks tight enough, it could just be, a deciding factor when they come down the straight.
Mike Vince, the Derby picture. Who wins it in your view?
Well, I don't think that that can win from stall 1. I don't think Kamiko will stay. I think it is very wide open. I'm fascinated that Ryan Moore rides Mogul and not Russian Emperor. And I've got to mention too, I think Mr. Marquand and Khalifa Set as a big price might be a knocking good each way bet. He won nicely at Goodwood, stays the trip. It's a messy one because I wrote when I try and look at a race like this, when there's no standout, you cross them out and think that can't win, that can't win. I crossed everything out. There's a reason to back nothing in the race, but you've got to back something. So I'm putting 2 up against the field. Khalifa Sat each way for Tom Marquand. And it wouldn't at all surprise me if Mr. Beggy and Vatican City, we have a case of Habemus Derby winner. He was staying on very nicely in the Guineas. And he's by no means a forlorn hope. But that said, as I said, there are negatives about a lot of them. And Aidan Bryan is right at the point he was making when I saw him a few weeks ago. I said that this is the strangest Derby of all time. Because if Kamiko were to win the race, Kamiko would end the first week in July with 2 runs and 2 classic wins. And that's not, because he's only had the 2 races. And that would be extraordinary. But I don't think he'll get the trip.
Ronan Groome, Mike is after, I suppose, crossing a couple out in the Derby here. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to take on English King just because I like the O'Brien runners, and it sounds simple. It's a really simple thing, but I don't think you have to get complicated with the Derby. Aidan O'Brien has won it 7 times. If he wins on Saturday, he's going to have the outright record of leading trainer in the race. Galileo is at the moment the joint leading sire in the race, so if one of O'Brien's horses wins on Saturday, he'll have the top billing as well for sires in the Derby. And I think that's not really factored into the likes of Russian Emperor and Mogul and Vatican City as much as maybe should be in when you kind of compare it to English King, who's trained by a rookie trainer, as I said, with regards to the Derby. And no disrespect to Ed Walker, he's an up-and-coming trainer, but this is the first time he's ever prepared a Derby horse. And we're just basing it on 1 run at Lingfield, where he looked pretty good. Fair enough, the form has worked out, but it's just 1 run. Russian Emperor has what a lot of Derby horses don't have this year. He's ran 3 times this season, and he's improved on each of those 3 runs. The most impressively, he when he won at Royal Ascot, he actually finished off his last 2 furlongs only, I think, 0.09 seconds slower than Lord North did on the same card, and Lord North was very impressive. I just think he is the potential improver for a trip. I am disappointed, as Mike said, that Ryan Moore is not riding him. That is quite disappointing. I thought he would offer him, and it just goes to show you that there is a lot of belief in Mogul. But there can't be much between the Barry Doyle 3 horses. Ryan left it till his decision till this morning, and he'd be my pick now. I have to say, Russian Emperor. I just think he's the improver for trip. He's battle hardened. He's obviously by Galileo. He's a trial winner. He just looks rock solid each way in what is probably not the most the best derby you'll ever see.
But I cannot go. I think he's actually going to go off favourite because I think, you hear this, Guinea's the best trial for the Derby. His form, obviously, in the book. I would personally question his physique and even his running style. He seems like kind of burly. You just wonder, and I know Oisin Murphy, I did hear a comment from Oisin Murphy saying, would he even handle, Newmarket? And Epsom, obviously, is a different kettle of fish also. So I would just be worried about him on the track. I think he probably will go off favourite. I could see the money coming for Cameco, but I definitely would be worrying. And I know you put up a kitten's joy for the Irish Derby last week, and I think it's the same situation. There has to be question marks at Epsom over a mile and 4. Obviously, that's been well spoke about now, whether he'll get the trip, but I personally don't think he will. I think O'Brien is throwing the kitchen sink at this one, Ronan. I know he does that every now and then when he doesn't have that standout Derby horse. Mogul, for me, he's been disappointing. Last season, early last season, he was spoke about obviously as the Derby contender. Went out, was very impressive on Irish Champions weekend, and beating Sinuan, who obviously has come out this week and ran well. But this season, I just think he's a lot to find. That's my opinion. I think Russian Emperor, you spoke about him possibly being an each way play. You could see him maybe potentially hitting the frame, but to me, he maybe might lack a bit of tactical speed, and something like a Ledger, he might be more suited, even though they have Santiago. Of the O'Brien runners, I think Vatican City is probably the more interesting. He was very raw horse last year, had form. Obviously started off, of course, at Newmarket behind Kinross, who was looking like a mighty impressive 2-year-old. But Vatican City obviously has progressed an awful lot and ran a cracking trial in the Irish Guineas. And, he probably of the O'Brien runners. But for me, and I'm going to say it, English King, I cannot see how everyone is just willing to take this horse on. Linkfield is the perfect trial, Ronan, for a Derby. He's the stamp of the old fella, Camelot. He oozes the same class. If you look at even the time he put up, very straightforward. He was dropped in the last day at Linkfield. The form has worked out okay with Berkshire Rocco, of course, running a cracking race at Ascot to finish 2 lengths behind the Irish Derby winner, Santiago. So just, I think, based on everything, and he's drifted to 3-1. I think there's a possibility he may because of the draw. He may go out to something like 7-2, but anything bigger than 3-1, I still think is value. Obviously, you have to be price sensitive. The Dam, actually, that's another point. Like, the Dam has bred 5 winners, all rated over 100 on the RPRs. So I just think anything bigger than 3-1, English King, everyone's taking him on. As I said, I probably will go in on the day again if he is 3-1. But so I can say no more. That's my opinion on the Derby. English King, Ed Walker. I get what you're saying about the rookie trainer, but if he has the horse, he has the horse, and Frankie, of course, on board. Anyway, that's enough of English King. 340 at Epsom, though, of course, over a mile and 4 as well. The Epsom Oaks Group 1. Is it a straight out shootout between, I suppose, Love and frankly, Darling? Ronan, I'll come to you.
No, I don't think it is. I think Love is definitely, deserves to be the price she is. But the discrepancy I see in the market is between Frankly Darling and Ennis Timon. If you go back and watch the Ribblesdale, that was a slowly run race, and it was a classic Dettori kind of Ascot ride where he's got close to the pace. He got a lovely lead. I think Josephine Gordon was riding pace setter that day, and just got a lovely lead in the straight, kicked at the right time, and just got first run on everything. And Ennis Timon was ridden by James Doyle and kind of flew home on the outside when it was all too late. Frankly Darling, don't get me wrong, looked impressive and won, but I just thought the race slowly run. Ennis Timon was in the wrong place, at the wrong time, off the back of a slow pace at the back of the field. It had to make up most of her ground down the outside. I just think the change to Epsom will suit her being by Galileo, and I could just see her getting a lot closer to Frankly Darling. I'd probably give her every chance to finish in front of her this time. They're both lightly raced fillies. And as I made the point already, it's simple. You can just keep it simple at Epsom, in the Oaks and the Derby with these O'Brien Galileos. And I just see her, she's a big improver for Epsom. And whether she can beat her stablemate, I don't know. She was very impressive. People are knocking that Guineas form, but she still won by 4 lengths. She's got to be an improver for a mile and a half as well. But at 7-1, I think you can still get Ennis Timon. I thought that was still fair enough. I backed her myself at 10-1, which is no use to anyone now. But 7-1, I think, is still a fair enough price when you take into account that Frankly Darling is a 2-1 chance with most bookies. So Ennis Timon for me.
I couldn't agree more. I think she is the value in there. I always saw Love as a miler. Being by Galileo, obviously, you would have to think that she would get the trip. But when it comes to Frankly Darling, I think she was far too keen. I think for an Oaks. Mike Vince, you had all the love you needed going into the Guineas, the 1,000 Guineas. You were a big fan, of course, of Love. Is she the one to beat? Does she get the trip?
Yes and yes. Very simple. It must be love. Wasn't the song Madness? Was it? It must be love. It's not madness on my part. Okay. I think she wins. I mean, again, the vibes from Barry Doyle have been positive since, and they've got enough in that race. The only concern I'd have had with it, when you only get 8 runners in a classic, is what the pace will be and whether there's any, whether it can become a crawl-a-thon, and suddenly it's a dash for the cash off the final bend at Epsom. I don't think it'll happen with 3 of them from Ballydoyle. I think they'll sort it. They'll know what they're doing. And in the same way as we were talking about the Derby, let's remember that Kamiko is the only Group 1 winner in the field. There isn't a single one of the last back ends 2-year-old winners in that race. Love is a Group 1 winner, and to me that is a huge plus. I think she'll win, and I think she'll win decisively.
Can't be confidence, Mike Vince. She would lack for experience, that is for sure. But each way bet for me, Ennis Timon. I think, as Ronan said, she didn't have the run of the race last time, and she could be very, very progressive. That's Ennis Timon, and I hope the English commentators can pronounce it right this time, Mike Vince.
Barry, the biggest overreaction I've ever seen was everyone losing their mind about that at Ascot. I just thought, well, how are we so precious, us Irish, sometimes with names and things? It's not like we pronounce names unbelievably well when they come over here. I just thought everyone go mad about that on Twitter. Jesus, like if that's the only thing you have to worry about, you're okay.
But I've got to add, of course, that
you're right, Ronan Groome. I'm as conservative as they come, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
How many of us will get? How many of us will get our Rahan Avian right?
I'd like to think you get that one right, Mike. That's our Irish national anthem, obviously. So.
It is. It's the soldiers' song, isn't it? But some of us have actually. But I'm waiting for the phone calls to start on Saturday morning.
I'd say he'll probably make the run, so I hope so he probably will be the one that they'll have to be calling early on. Anyway, 3:00 at Sandown, lads, on Sunday. What a card we have at Sandown. It's, I suppose, the big handicap on Sunday, the Cork Challenge over a mile. Dark Vision, he got his day in the sun at Ascot. He's 92 favourite here. Mike, he's been hit with £8, and the second as well in the betting here, Mahatem, has been hit with £3 also. They're both 92 favourites. Has to be value elsewhere, is there?
I think Mahatem, but the thing is, what I would also say is, unfortunately, we are talking before the draw's been made. And if that turns out to be a full field, it could get very, very messy. And so my advice is go in late, but if it gets anything like a half-decent draw, I'll go against the favourite here. But I just think it could be, it is one of those races where 14, 15 runners, the draw does matter because it's a bit like Piccadilly Circus at 8:30 in the morning on the inside, and you wouldn't want to get stuck in there.
What are you picking, Mike? What are you going with?
I'll go with Mahada. I'll go with the second favourite to beat the favourite. But as I said, with a huge, great big caveat that if you hear that the toys have been thrown out with the pram about 10:30 tomorrow, it's because of what the draw's done.
Yeah, look at it in terms of this race, lads. Kesar was one that interested me. He's rated second highest, obviously, at 107. He was a night catcher actually in Newmarket on his first start this season. Hannon's horses weren't running well at the time. They're starting to obviously run a little bit better now. I think he's had 6 winners in the last week. Look, he seems to do his best work at the end. I think maybe the stiff uphill finish at Sandown would maybe suit him. He seemed to me, I think he could be valued here at 14-1. That's Kezar, and Ryan Moore, of course, is booked for the ride. Lads, coming on obviously to the big one on Sunday, which is what a race this is, lads. 3:35. It's over a Group 1, obviously over a mile, and 2 for 4-year-olds and plus. Has to be probably the best side we've seen all year. I think Ghayyaith blazing the trail at Newmarket. Of course, in Stradivarius, we see what he's done, obviously, back up in Trip. Surely he's going to take the world beating here, Mike, I think, the Godolphin horse.
Yes, you're right. I think he'll win. I think she will need it, the Queen, Enable. Don't think Japan is good enough, and I certainly don't think Deirdre is good enough. But I think this is an exceptional racehorse. It's going to be hard to place, but it might be that, Ghayyaith and Enable, this is going to be round 1, and round 2 might be in Paris in early October. I don't know what their thinking is further down the line, but Ghayyaith, with the benefit of the race and did a demolition job on the Coronation Cup field, 1.25 miles shouldn't be a problem, dropping slightly back in Trip. I'm Ghayyaith and more Ghayyaith as far as I'm concerned. You can't get enough of it.
I think you're right. 9 looks a good price there. Ronan, you called it obviously with Lord Nord, as we said, 12-1 at Royal Ascot. Looks progressive. This will be his 3rd run of the season. Can he enter the mix here?
He can, but wasn't there? I was a slight doubt about him running expressed last night by John Gosling. I'm not sure if that's actually come to fruition yet, but it's I'll be holding fire on him till we get declarations. What a race! I mean, it's sensational, really. You tend to think that Ghayyaith or Ghayyaith, as I've heard some people pronounce it, would probably be strong enough here, given that he has race fitness on his side and he can go off in front and use that to his advantage. But obviously he has to concede 3 pounds to Enable, who's actually rated 2 pounds higher than him, and he's not the most bomb-proof Ghayyaith before. You can tell he has this monster rating, but he hasn't exactly lit it up with like a string of wins beside his name. He has bombed out a few times, most notably in the Arc last year when he kind of just went off too quick in the ground. So for that reason, I'm a bit skeptical about Ghayyaith doing it again. Enable has been quite strong on her seasonal debut in recent seasons. The one that's interesting, I guess, is Japan. Now that he's had the run, is happy enough to take him on in the Prince of Wales, just first time out. I still think he could be a better horse over further, but with the run under his belt, he progressed with racing last season. He really kind of got better as the season progressed. So I just had him down as a big improver, and believe his end goal is the Arc. He's been bought into by quite a big Japanese owner, so it's all about the Arc for him as well. But he was the interesting one, I thought, on his second start. I think he's around 5-1. With ever so slight questions about whether Ghayyaith can back up again here, and whether Enable will be fit enough. I guess, although she has obviously done very well on her seasonal debut in recent seasons, but obviously Enable don't want to beat. But Japan is the one I'll be looking at possibly for a bet.
Lads, great action, of course, in this side of the Irish Sea, of course, at Naas Ferryhouse and Cork this weekend, with the Ballychorus Stakes, obviously, and the Munster Oaks. Ronan, is there anything, I suppose, in Ireland that you fancy this weekend, without full declarations?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Naas on Saturday. I have to preview that card for the Irish field. The filly that I'm looking forward to seeing is Gleneagles filly, Silence Please. She won the listed Salsable Stakes at Navan. If you remember that race, she got up just on the line. It was a first listed winner for Tom Madden. Beat the stable's other runner, I think it's One Voice, and she's gone on to win soon as well. I think Gleneagles is an interesting sire angle because a lot of his horses are seeming to be well over 10 furlongs this year, and I've seen people refer to that in the chances of Vatican City in the Derby, because obviously Gleneagles is a full brother to Vatican City, but he did most of his winning over a mile, as did Happily and Marvelous, who are also in that family. But a lot of Gleneagles progeny are going quite well over further. And this was one of them, this filly, Silence Please, and she's over 10 furlongs again on Saturday in the Oaks trial, and it's a good race. Paddy Toomey's Moll is in that race as well, who's been put up by a lot of shrewd judges this year. She's by Camelot, moved over from Mark Cahill's stable, and landed a nice touch at Leopardstown. But I like the way this Silence Please done it at Navan, and I'm looking forward to seeing her. That's in the 5:15 at Naas on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean Jessie could have a very good last hour of Naas on Saturday, because of course she's got Mill Isle in the two big races at the back end of the card for RTE. But the one that went into my notebook, I really liked the way the horse won the Noblesse, is Heliac, who's in the Munster Oaks on Sunday. Don't know whether at this stage the horse will be confirmed as we talk. Of course, we're speaking before Dex, but looked a real promising horse, and something for Ger Lyons to go to war with alongside Siskin this year. If Heliac turns up in the Munster Oaks on Sunday, I think she'll take an awful lot of beating.
Ger Lyons also has a lovely filly entering. This is the one I was interested in this weekend. Peace Charter is entering the Brownstown Stakes over 7 furlongs. And I think that she's formed last year. She's quite lightly raced. She's formed with Albina. She only finished 2 lengths off in a Group 2 last season with the Curragh. She was an eye catcher at Leopardstown on her seasonal reappearance, third behind Love Locket at Leopardstown. She was drawn poorly, and she kind of made a lot of ground late on. And the form of that race actually hasn't worked out so bad, because obviously Know It All for Johnny Murtaugh's come out and won this week. But definitely, when I watched that race at Leopardstown, I remember watching it back. I think she'll win next time out. That's Peace Charter. She's entered actually in the 6 furlong race as well. But if she goes for either of those, I'm very, very interested in her. I think she's definitely a progressive filly. That's Peace Charter for Ger Lyons at Cork on Sunday. But lads, I must ask you, a nap and an NB for the weekend. Ronan Groome, will come to you first.
I'm napping Russian Emperor in the Derby. I've already backed him at a nice price, but I still think there's 7-1 is a bit of value. Just one thing I just thought is the form of his race at Royal Ascot worked out quite well as well. Like, he beat Juan Elcano by the same distance Cameco beat him in the Guineas. Just thought that was worth mentioning as well. So that's my nap. And my next best is Ennis Simon. I think she'll run a very nice race, and I think she has every chance of finishing in front of Frankly Darling this time in the Oaks.
Brilliant. Mike Vince.
Nap, love conquers all as far as I'm concerned in the Oaks, and I will chance Khalifa Sat each way. What a story that would be if Tom Marquand burgles Frankie on the line. The likes of Ronan will have a lot of fun with that. The horse impressed me at Goodwood, and he's too big in a race which doesn't normally have the first, second and third as the first, second and third favourites. Normally there's something at a bigger price that gets in the mix. Khalifa Sat each way for me.
Up for the week, English King, 3-1, still juicing the price. Think he is the best horse in the race, and it ticks every single box for a Derby, in my opinion, bar the draw, Mike Vince. But yeah, no, I think he's the nap for me. And I do like Ennis Simon as well. I go each way Ennis Simon in the Oaks. And if I was to give one for a handicap, it would be Kezar, of course, for the Hannon team in the Curl Challenge, lads. That's a wrap, of course, for the Epsom Derby weekend preview. Brilliant to have both of you guys on the podcast again. For anyone, I suppose, new to the channel, please subscribe and do let us know your Derby and your Oaks selections down below. And lads, look, we'll be back next week to preview the race, and I wish you both the very best luck in your punting this weekend.
Cheers, Barry.